you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The professional building located at 685 Delaware Avenue is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803.
This is Scott Spears, and today we're talking with a very familiar face and even more familiar voice from Columbus, Ohio television in the 1950s and 1960s, Sky Lucey, who created and starred as Casper the Camel in the long-running children's TV series on WTVN, which is now WSYX. Sky, so good to be with you again.
Same here.
Sky,
Same here.
Last time, well, what have you been up to since you were here last? It's been about a year now. What's been new?
Well, I just got older. You know, we haven't done much, me and my buddy. Which
here he comes.
Yeah,
let's see him. Let's introduce him.
He's prepared for the season. I'll get my head up here. I can't do this as well because the voice changes when you get old and that kind of thing. But I can do this. You know, I can look over at there, or look over here, or look at me. You know?
And he's all ready for Christmas.
He's ready for Christmas, and we can get that right off there anytime you want.
And of course, that's Casper the Camel. For those who don't know, the original Casper the Camel has only been one of those over the years.
There's only been one, and this one, I commented just today that there's some of the, this was paper mache, this nose. The original guy did that, but it was painted just so stark that it would have been a great puppet for your house. You know, shows of children at home, but not television doesn't work that way. It's the same with this. This is a bath mat, which you can buy any place, and he painted this to look more like skin. This was pink or something. I don't know what this was. The eyes. Am I holding this here?
Yeah, zoom in a little bit on that.
The eyes. He changed those because these look more like big camel eyes to him, and that's a ping pong ball cut in half, one half on each side, and the eyelashes are paper, and they're still up there. And this thing has been through the Lazarus parades and all of that kind of thing.
Now that puppet, Sky, 60 years old.
Yes.
That's amazing.
This unit is. There's been no other made. And there was inside a padding that I put in there to help me guide it around. And that padding, which was a handkerchief, stayed in there, and I just, here about a month ago, took it out. It's been in there ever since. And it was just a white cloth, like a handkerchief, but 60 years old, inside this thing.
Now, how did it, when the show ended in the 1960s, how was it you came across this puppet, being the one and only?
Well, do you mean how I decided on it, or what we?
How did it become in your possession? For the last 40 years.
When the show ended, I can't say anything about Channel 6. They're nice people, and they're all gone. The ones that were there. We used to have a prop room with a prop guy, an older guy that worked there that would bring stuff out, and they moved him out. And they put all these things in props in these cabinets at night. And this was put in there at night. I didn't take this home or anything like that. And when I was finished, I walked into the prop room, and he had already taken it out of the case and handed it to me. He said, I think you want this. And I said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. If I can't use it, I'll just hold it. Hold it, because it was my life for a long time.
What does that mean to you? As you hold it on your hand today, what does that mean to you?
It's a friend who likes to chatter with me. It's a friend that stopped over to my house one night to stay and just stayed. It's the man who came to dinner and got lost and became my closest friend, along with Chuck Newsom. I cannot go into a lot of detail about that program without saying that there was another person on it. A big, tall, good-looking guy who really liked sports. He would rather have been a sportscaster, but he ended up as just an announcer doing good stuff. And a few little kid shows after we got started with this, Uncle Newt, with a fake beard. I lost my thought there.
No, it was a great combination of you and Chuck Newsom for years.
Oh yes,
yeah.
It was. I don't like to say anything about Johnny Carson because I love the show. I don't think I ever missed it. But Ed McMahon was part of Carson's program. Without Ed there, it would have just been Johnny. And now he could have come by. He's a stand-up comedian, or was. But he had somebody to work with. I did too. It was Chuck Newsom, who fed me a lot of material that he couldn't use. It would be pointless for him. But for me and Casper, it was material that I never would have gotten anyplace. And that's where most of it came from. We never had a script. In 10 years, we never, ever had a written script. All we had, each director that we had, and they changed around, the director would come down with a piece of paper, an 8x10 like you have. It would say, typed 1, opening. That's it. 2, commercial for somebody. 3, cartoon. 4, a guest. 5, cartoon. I mean, that was it. And so anything we did, we just did extemporaneously. That's a hard word for me. I'm an old person. And we made light out of the heavy commercials. They put a real estate agent on my show once, or our show, I should say, selling houses. And we got this commercial in the afternoon. And we sat down and said, what in the world are we going to do with this where we have some houses to sell? And Chuck came up with an idea that worked. So when we did it, we did this, and Casper was there, and I'm sure the guy that owned the company that had the commercials was a fan of some kind, because there weren't many adult shows bought on there, because they all thought it was a children's show, but it was more of a show for Mother, because Mother was there and Mother had a lot of time. And it was interesting how people used to entertain the mother with the children in school or whatever. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to make it pleasant for her so she could sit down, take a break, and just watch us carry on.
Is Casper's personality Sky's personality?
Very much so. Very, very much so. I think because my friendship with Chuck Newsom preceded the program, and we both used to just sit there and laugh at stuff, anything. When we had a chance to laugh for some reason or for somebody, I fell right into it, because you couldn't miss him. he was the machine that brought the material in more than I ever did. I could, when he was on vacation or something, one of the other announcers or somebody would come down there, and I say no thanks, because the puppet was mine and I wanted to just keep it. So I would just fake him and carry on like a fool, and they'd call and say, "That was really good. Let's do that again." I said, "They want to do it again?" They're wild. Oh dear. But yes, that's true. He and I developed into we played golf together all the time, along with an engineer named Gary Brown, who has passed away. And Gary always went with us, and he was a laugher too. He loved to have funny stuff said, and he wanted to get out of the studio because he was tired, So he'd play golf with us, and we all just laughed our way through 18 holes of the smallest golf course we could find, because none of us were good golfers, but we had a good time being there.
Did what you had to do.
We had golf shoes, and we all had clubs, and it was pretty funny. I think we rented that stuff. I'm not totally sure.
But before we get back to Casper, which I want to do, I want to go back to your childhood. Where did you grow up, Sky? What was it?
Toledo, Ohio.
And what was your childhood like?
Well, it was very good. I had a fantastic mother who stayed home until I went away to school. She did not leave me with as a sitter or something. She stayed there with me. She was always there. And my father was an insurance man in the insurance business, and he was probably the only man in the world that could come up with 500 or 1,000 Catholic jokes without even being told to. He would go to dinners of Catholic organizations, and was a great after-dinner speaker because he could bring up some of these jokes that he had, which were okay. They were straight and everything, but he was part of everybody. Somebody would come in there and with a problem, and he'd solve it. When the October 29 hit, there were a lot of titles sent down to his office to foreclose these people. Get them out of there. Get them out of there. And he just stacked them up. So when the thing was over with, these guys came in, and Walter Lucey saved their houses, which is something very few people know about, and they're all gone now, so I can say it. But I went to a really good school. I went to public school for one year. My mother tried to get me or my father said, "Why don't you just go to public school?" Mother said, "No, I want you to go here." So I did, and I was with the the nuns all the time, and it was very strict, but we learned in groups of thought. There would be not just something we'd learn, they would teach you a whole bunch of things together on any given day. And in public school, they would have a thing on the chalkboard, "This is today's lesson." But the Catholic nuns really poured it to you. I mean, they were very strict. I sat in the front row because I was interested in what was going on. And we used to have 3-sided wooden measuring. There's a name for those, and I can't think of it. Anyhow, that was our way to multiply and divide and everything. And it was made out of wood. And every good nun would stand at the front of the class like this with their hand on this thing sticking up here, which joined the top of your head. If you didn't say the right thing, or you were laughing or kidding, plunk, you got over. And today, of course, you can't do that, but then you could. And it was probably just as well for me. I was always talking to the guy over here, you know, or the girl over there, or whatever. But they were great women. And that school is still there. It's twice as big as it was. I think I drove by it here last summer, and I thought, I tried not to bring things up to my mother that were negative as far as me, as I'm concerned, physical things. And one day a car came in the driveway to the school, and back in those days the doorknobs were facing forward, not backwards. They moved them because of the people getting caught. You know, the car, if you got too close, would grab you like a big hook and take you. Well, it did that to me one day. I stepped out, and this car grabbed me, and I was dragged along. And I said nothing when I got home. But the nun called. And when she said, is Schuyler okay, Mrs. Lucey? Mrs. Lucey said, what is wrong with him? And I got talked to. I didn't do that anymore.
Well, Scott, I want to move on here. Now, how did you get your start in broadcasting after this eventful childhood?
I was at Ohio State, and I had started out as a law student. I thought that'd be a good idea because members of my family were in the business. And after about a year and a half, it really didn't make any difference to me whether I was there or not. I really was, it was not right. I just not right. So I changed into on liberal arts grouping, if that's what you call it, music and theater and so forth, stuff I really began to enjoy. And a director from Channel 6 named Howard Roby, and I hope Howard is listening. I'm sure he is. He called me one day and he said, there's a job open at Channel 6. Do you want it? Do you want it? I said, yes. What is the job? Yes is the affirmative. Job is, we'll find out. And it was this floor job, which I enjoyed. It was part of television, and it was all the hoopla, and Beckman was crazy, and he had me doing his commercials. He would be talking, and I'd hold up something. You know, it was my job to hold it up and smile. He didn't really want to do that. And I did that until he started to send me around town. Once I went to the Deschler Hotel, which was Broad and High Street. Now they're gone. He wanted to see if a woman dressed in a African dress of some sort, and a guy with her wearing no clothes but a skirt, a grass skirt. Guess who? And I said, "Spook, are you kidding?" No, he said, "I want to do that. Let's try that." Well, the director said, "That's the funniest thing I ever heard." So I did. They drove me down there in a limousine, and she got out with all this stuff on, the stuff that they wear, you know. And the guy with the spear had no coat on, no shirt on, and the hotel just kind of stopped, and I went up and I said, "Do you have a room?" Well, we didn't get a room. We were asked to leave because we were disturbing the guests. And Beckman thought that was great. They had a photographer there. And that kind of went along, and they got more involved and more involved, and the camel was just a happening. Nobody planned that. When that guy said, "I'm leaving," it's just, if it's like taking this microphone and taking it away. It makes no sense to sit here and talk if there's nothing recording it. And nothing must I say is recorded worthwhile, incidentally. And he asked me to work for him. So the boss said, "Sure, go ahead, take him." A floor director at that time was worth about 4 cents on the market. So I started doing all these things for him. And I did this and I did it, and it went on for probably a year or so.
Now, who was this?
This was, well, the executive producer was Al Sternberg,
Okay.
who went to NBC in Florida, and probably is passed away now, because I was older than he was. The station said, I'm really trying. It was all mixed up. Beckman said, "Let him go ahead," because they had a directing job, and they wanted me to do that, because I seemed to know what I was doing there. Yeah, right. And then I got involved with that, and I got involved with being people on the air, and then the leaving of the one guy, and then I'm walking around the building on all these offices asking people if they want to do a show for themselves and so forth, and nobody did, so I did. And they started with 15 minutes, and it ended up being an hour.
Now, you actually came up with the idea for the camel, but you originally suggested a moose.
I did. We were in the conversation, and that was so far back, it's almost hard to say. But I was reminded that Captain Kangaroo, who was on the air at that time, had this big moose that he used. And the show I mentioned to you, which is, I thought, almost too TV-ish, which is on now, on Saturday morning on what's channel, I don't know. Painted people and painted kids, and that's not friendly. You know, that's just watch kids watch things happening in color, and they're like all that, and I didn't like that. So we did just what was up here.
Where did the name Casper come from?
Well, I don't know whether I took it or whether Al Sternberg did, but I agreed with it, and I may have suggested it. It's too far back, Scott, to remember exactly what the conversation was. I'd make a lousy witness at some trial. It could have been picked from something, I don't know. When I got home that night, I said to myself, what am I going to sound like? What do I do there? I can't do this. You can't just talk yourself. And I was a great fan of Red Skelton. I thought he was one of the great comedians of all times. And he had a character whose name, I believe, was Clem Cadiddlehopper. Well, Clem Cadiddlehopper talked like I could. I could make almost the same thing. That was the camel. The camel did that because it was loose, it was funny, and it was not strict. We tried to keep it from being strict and so forth. It was loose, and if we made a mistake, fine, go on and make another one.
There's a funny story about the first day. Tell me about the first day as Casper.
Well, I can't tell you all the words, and you can't do that on the radio, I don't think. I had never done a puppet before, and there's a movable mouth here. Well, if you've never done a puppet, you certainly have never done a movable mouth. So the first, when the show went on the air and the theme song played and whatnot, and the director had a speaker. He could cut on that and yell down to you something, whatever. And they played a cartoon. We were still thinking of what you're going to do. I'm going to sneeze. The break for commercial came, and I said, how'd we do? And he leaned out of there, and he said, move the mouth. Those words I can't say here, but I did. I never forgot to move the mouth from that day on.
You moved the mouth. For those of us who didn't live in that time, Sky, how popular was this show?
Well, we had good ratings. We had competition. Flippo, nicest guy in the world. We did a joke on him once. He had a set where he went in or went out of a doorway right in the middle of the wall, I think, as I remember. I don't know. His guests came in there and so forth and so on. So the kids from Channel 10 came over to me one day and said, would you be a guest? And that was absolutely no back in those days. Big management had no sense of humor doing that, but now it's crazy. I said, sure. So I came over. They sneaked me in the back door and back behind the set, and I had Casper all set to go. And Flippo came over to the door and was talking. He opened it, and there I was. The man, I don't think ever in his life was caught without a word. He said, what in the are you doing over here? Are you lost? You know. So I talked to him for about, I don't know, a minute, because that was enough, and then we left. But the people were talking about that. They were about Casper showing up on Flippo's show. I had a great respect for Flippo for what he did. That makeup every day, every single day, 5 days a week, complete. I thought, wow, I'm very lucky. I can pick up my camel and that's it.
Was Channel 6 angry when you got back for doing that?
No, they didn't pay any attention to it.
One of the things that people remember most about Casper is the prayer. Where did the prayer come from?
Well, we borrowed the prayer from Fred Pittsburgh. Fred, the man that put on the sweater.
Fred Rogers.
Fred Rogers.
Yes.
Fred Rogers. His producer knew me through another person, and we were talking about, it was a good idea, I thought, to have a prayer. I said, we got to find something which is simple and that children will understand regardless of what denomination. And he sent us the prayer. Well, we liked it so much we kept it. Free of charge for 10 years, and I made an ET, an electrical transcription, in those days because we had no tape. The station did not have a tape recorder, so I taped it with Bill somebody, the piano player and the organist, and we taped it. Now, the reason was because Chuck would say, okay, folks, have a good weekend. This is it today, and so forth. And Casper, it's all yours. And they would turn the lights down, and when the prayer ended, the time ended. I wanted the thing just to stop and not have to go on beyond that. So when we did the prayer, and Bill played his little ending on the organ, that was it. No more show.
Do you remember the prayer?
I knew you were going to say that.
I get it. You had to know that was coming.
It started out with good night, God. Thank you for this very lovely day. Thank you, too, for helping us. Something. It goes on from there. It's very simple, and it's a good thing for children. I have the original E.T. That got saved in all the years. I believe I still have it.
Unfortunately, though, there are no videotapes, reel-to-reel, nothing left of the actual show.
No, I had a lot of that sort of thing. I had 1,000,000 8x10s because that's how we were visually active. Our photographer, Jim Frank, would run out to a fire and take a bunch of pictures and come back and process them, and they were on the air. That's how it worked. But he would always, if I had a picture taken, he'd always give me a copy, and I saved all those, and I saved the tapes. We had tapes eventually, and I saved those. Well, I had them all stored at a friend's house. For some reason, maybe painting or one of those things, and they had a fire, and the fire consumed all of that. The only thing that I had left is what I have now, and you've seen most of it. The scrapbook with the 8x10s and a few other choice things, but that's it.
When all that went up, what was the feeling?
It was awful because our whole careers were wiped out. I mean, people would be asking us, can we have a tape of this, or do you have it? I'd have to say no. I'm sorry, it was destroyed, and that was it.
Yeah, very difficult. Why did the show end after a 10-year run?
Well, there was an argument. I think it's a two-part answer. Number one, it was time for that show to move on. Johnny Carson had come in, and it was either before or after my show. I don't know which one. I don't remember. And color was there, and it was time for us to leave. So how do you get somebody to leave? The station asked me to do some shows in opening of supermarkets. Well, I can't do that because we have to drag a set with us and all that. You can't do that. And I said, I can't do it. He said, okay, you're fired. It's just like that, bang. And that's why the puppet, Ed, the prop man, knew that was it. The article in the papers, I think the lady that was the writer for television wrote a piece on it. It was kind of nobody knew why, and that's why. It was time. It was time for me to go too. We had run a long time, and then the business began to change, and it was not our time. It would have been good to stay a while, but not long.
The day it came down, did you get to do a farewell show?
No.
Was that hard for you?
Yes, I knew. I had a feeling. One of those feelings you have that when you end it, you know that something is not right because of conversations between people and so forth, and then the manager calls you up to his office, which he never did, was that his point to call me up to his office? And I thought, I think it's gone. And it was.
Did you ever want to play Casper again after that?
No.
Why was that?
Well, there was not an outlet for it any place. Everybody had Flippo was running strong, and other stations were increasing their programming to make it better. And I thought Chuckus would not be able to leave with me. He's got a job here, and I didn't want to interrupt him. So I just said, let it go. We'll move on to something else. And I'm not totally sure what I moved on to. It's too far back.
You know, it's very interesting, Sky, that Flippo is remembered very well. Lucy's Toy Shop is remembered very well.
Right.
And certainly Casper is. Now, maybe it's because Casper was on Channel 6, but it doesn't get brought back like Flippo and Lucy and Jimmy Crumb and people of that nature get brought back. How does that make you feel? You're still around. Casper's still
Right.
around.
I don't feel bad about it at all, because I was on the lower of the 3 power stations, and Flippo was big time. He could do shows all over the city, and we just weren't that big. We were okay. Our ratings were good. As best I knew, it was hard to find what they were, and nobody ever wanted to tell you. But when it did happen, I thought to myself, well, that's the end of that. But I kept Casper because I thought they told me, lawyers said, you can't use it anyplace. That's why when I talked to you, I said, well, I don't know whether I can do it or not, but I don't want to not getting paid for it, and it's all long gone and dead history and so forth and so on. So I don't worry about it now.
But people do remember it fondly. 60 years after this thing first went on the air, this bath mat.
Yes.
Why is it still so endeared to people?
Well, I can't answer
I mean,
that.
you bring it up there, and people, I guarantee, are getting sentimental.
There was nothing quite like it. There was nothing quite like it on the air at the time. And what he was me. It wasn't somebody else. They had some ladies. We had a brilliant woman whose name was Mary Ellen Schott, who died, unfortunately. And Marianne she could do anything. But when we went on as guests, it was hard for me to talk to her, because she was so well versed in everything, and I wasn't. This is Mr. Ordinary from the street. But I think that's this became part of me. That's why.
I mean, even pointed at the camera there, Sky. I mean, you can just see. I mean, it looks like it's raring and ready to go. It looks like a real live person.
Inside of this, for those who are wondering, is nothing. It's just a big empty.
Look at that. Sky, if you say you've held on to this for 60 years, what happens to this one day, many years from now, when you're no longer here?
I don't really know. I'm going to give it to somebody who will not ruin it. And there are several people who have talked to me about it. They said, we'll be happy to take care of him and put it aside and whatnot. And I'll probably do that. I haven't done it, but I've thought about it. You're right. You're quite right. I've thought about if you tell a lawyer at a meeting something about your will, well, I'd like to have the puppet hidden. They think, oh, okay, you want an aspirin or something?
Well, no, this is a piece of television history. This truly is, and I think it certainly should be either on display somewhere or at least kept.
I'll tell you this, just a side story. We almost made the network. We
Really?
came that close to being on ABC. A guy came to town to talk to my friend Mary Ann. He had his meeting with her, and then he left, and then she came in and was just like every day's fine. She's working of the day, going on. I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, they wouldn't give me control of the show, so I told them we're not going to do it." And I went, "Oh man, a network, $1,100 a week they were prepared to pay for this little."
And they would.
That's the end of the network. The guy went back to the network and they picked something else. But they saw her show, and they saw this one, and he said, well, you can include the deal. You can include this show. I mean, Chuck Newsom would have been. We all would have been just a little bit up the food chain.
The road not taken.
Right.
Holy
Right.
moly.
Yeah, that's how close we came.
It's because it was that popular, I think, and people did love it. Sky, do you have any regrets in life?
Yes.
What's that?
Well, I think we all do. I think it's. I spent a summer at a summer theater in Connecticut because a friend of mine recommended me to do it. And I said, "Okay, that's good. I'll do it." And there was a rather upscale show place. We had Eve Arden, Joan Bennett, people like that there every week. And at the end of the summer, he said he owned a theater in New York. He said, "I would like you to come to New York with me." And I was a student at Ohio State, and I was facing military service in ROTC, which I would have never made. I don't react well to military people saying, "Give me 50," one of those things. And but I thought I was going to get nailed to it anyhow. So I told him, I said, "Well, I have to go back to school," and I did. And I was drafted, and I went through all the paperwork, and finally the guy said, "I'll tell you, you know what 4S is?" And I said, "No, sir, I don't." He said, "It means you go back to school. I can't use it. Number one, you have asthma or hay fever, and I can't have you sneezing out there in combat." I didn't particularly care about combat. I would have done it had I been told. But people like that telling me what to do that I don't know, and I'm not sure about their qualifications, they don't usually get very far with me.
So a regret that you didn't go on to that theater.
Right. If I had gone to the theater, I probably would have, if been lucky, if I would have done something.
Have you had any trials and tribulations in your life? Things to overcome?
Which day of the week would you like to discuss?
Well,
I can give you Monday trials or Tuesday trials. It makes no.
What's been the major thing in your life you've had to overcome?
Well, profession, I think, and personal life. I've been divorced several times, and I'm not totally sure what I was looking for or what the causes are. But I did enough things that it would. I've always want to say, like the network thing with the show, television, radio, stage show, something. All of that appealed to me, and still does. I've done a couple of shows when the theater downtown near the park, which is gone now. We did some John Crawford and I, and Ted Pritchard, who was an understudy for an actor who was very short, because Ted was very short, but he died. We did some shows there, so I was easy to sell. Would you do this? Yes.
There you
My
go.
answer always seemed to be yes. I never turned down a gig like that if it was any of those three.
Would it ever, if somebody wanted to bring back Casper or the network had wanted to continue after the cancellation, would it ever make you angry to see somebody else playing Casper?
Probably.
Now, why is that?
Well, it's my buddy.
Yeah, I
That's my buddy and Chuck's buddy. Chuck was as much a buddy as this the old funny thing here. The two of us were very close to this, and Casper said something. And then Chuck would make something funny out of it, or I would, or whatever, or a guest would. We had some interesting people that came through who were fascinated by it, Phyllis Diller being one of them. She thought that was the funniest thing in the world. We had the guy that did the Disney thing, the head MC at Disney's big show there for years, and I forget all of those people. I don't even remember everybody who was on that show because the pictures are gone.
yeah.
I can't refer to the pictures. Jimmy Dodd and the Mickey Mouse Club. I did a show with him at the Veterans Memorial, of all places. He came on our show, and then he said, I'm doing a private show for, 4,000 kids or something? Would you come down and join me? And I thought, I have just, the golden turkey has flown into my coop. I said, sure. I went down there, and they fixed the curtain so I could pick my head out and all that. And we had a great time.
I'm going to show. I have two pictures here from the Casper show. I'm going to show.
Okay.
Here's Casper with Santa
Christmas
Claus.
time, Santa is Gene Fullen, who was probably one of the better Santa Clauses anywhere. Gene Fullen knew what Santa Claus was and did it. And he was always had us on his show, and he was a great Santa Claus.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, Sky
Oh,
and
yeah.
Casper.
That's right. And we were just peeking out of there, and our photographer was there, and he said, hold that shot for a minute. I was looking to see something we were on the film or a cartoon, and I just peeked rather than walking clear around the set. I wanted to see what was going on out there, but it turned out like that. The two of us. That's a classic. That was that you had that on the first program we did.
I did. That's a classic picture.
Well, we had you had I thought two pictures that were, one was now, one was before, and I forget. I'll have to go home and look at that picture.
Sky, what's the highlight of this life? What's been the highlight?
Well, it's hard to answer. My son, I have to start with him. He's very successful. He is he knows things. If I ask him a question electronically, he gives me an answer, and I might as well be talking to this cup. He has a business here in town. His business now is in Columbus. It's called the Magic Garden, and he does remastering of things, and he does a lot of them, and he's just a joy. The rest of it was professional work, marriage, not always successful, probably my fault. And travel. I love to travel. When I was in that phase, I traveled all over the world. I've been there. I've been to Europe 2 or 3 times, and I have 100 and some slides at home. We were a friend of mine and I were trying to figure out a way to take the slide and put it on a card and send it to people, you know, with our own personal slide. I think those are the ones. I think that's it. It's not, money would be nice, but it's not having a lot of money. I had enough money to do what I wanted to do, and maybe a little short, but that's okay.
At 80 years old today, are you happy? Is life good?
It's pretty good. My health is pretty fair, and I need to thank the people in charge here in upstairs, way upstairs, that I did not sneeze or cough, which I had done all day. I've done it for like 2 weeks now. And thank you very much. It's I guess the microphone puts some pressure on you.
It must have took it out of you. Sky, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now, what's the epitaph going to read?
I did the best I could.
I think you did. Now, does Casper want to say something to us before we wrap up today?
Well, if he could talk, but his talker is...
His talker is...
His talker. That's about it, and that's from Red Skelton's show. But I lost the Casper voice in just growing older because your voice changes. I mean, yours is going to change, and yours is going to change, but it's not involved in something like this. But when it changed, I was to the point when it changed that I could get away with a whole lot. You know, it wasn't exactly the same voice, but nobody seemed to care. You know, because we had more fun just looking at him.
Well, I tell you what, Sky, it is a piece of television history, and it's been fun going down memory lane talking about it.
Well,
because there's nothing like it left.
It's fun for me too. I love to talk about old times.
Absolutely.
The broadcast business is still fascinating to me, and I watch a lot of television, mostly to critique what I see. Like I could do that better, you know.
And I bet that's true.
But the old times and the years with Chuck Newsom. And that last show you had when you had his 3 daughters on, that was really something.
That was fun.
Because I saw them grow up, you know, and his son Charles, and another son who came to his mother's funeral. I forget his name, but they're all grown up, but they weren't at one point. But that's all just great. I've enjoyed it. When I sit here, if I go tomorrow, then I've done what I want to do.
Well, and it will continue on. We'll hope it'll continue on further than tomorrow. Sky Lucey and the